Broadcaster Alistair Stewart is quite simply one of the most recognisable newsreaders on British television. He spent more than 40 years on air and has travelled the world to cover some of the most important stories of our time.
Well, Alistair was diagnosed with vascular dementia in 2019 and he's spoken about the reality of living with the condition and the impact of that on his family. He's going to join us in a moment with his wife Sally, but first let's have a look back at his career in his own words.
This is ITV News at 10 with Alistair Stewart and Natasha Kaplinsky.
Good evening. The simmering anger.
After half a century in work, as it were, I do still find it. I find it a bit difficult when there are big stories going on. The story that was the most important one that I did, and I was very proud about doing it, was the fall of the Berlin Wall. I did the death of the late Queen Elizabeth II. So a bit of me feels I'd like to still be there at the heart of the action.
A force of some 20,000 men with M60 tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles have crossed into Iraq. I'm Alistair Stewart, and for the first time on British television, live in front of a representative studio audience, we'll be hearing from three men, each hoping to be the leader of the next UK government.
About 2 years ago, I began to feel a bit disorientated, discombobulated, not quite knowing what was going on, where I was sometimes. My emails were getting sloppy, bad spelling, bad grammar, and normally I was meticulous about that. Sally's always been incredibly supportive of me. Being married to someone who suddenly develops dementia is a hell of a challenge.
Thank you very much indeed, all of you, for coming in. And that's it this lunchtime. Mary Nightingale, I think we'll have a more peaceful time at 6:30. But from all of us, a very good afternoon to you. Bye-bye.
You've got some children to make you feel at home. Crawl all over the place.
Well, Alistair and Sally join us now. Alistair, you are used to chaos, aren't you? You're used to years and years of live broadcasting. How are you now?
I'm actually not too bad. I think it's a brilliant word to choose because, like the little girl sitting on the desk, I think that my professional life is OK. I still do a bit for GB News. They're very supportive. I did the election. I hope to be involved in the budget coverage. It's my private life and my life at home that is chaotic. So, for example, coming to see you guys this morning and to support Dementia Research UK, she has to do my tie. She has to make sure that the braces are OK on the suit and that it all matches and it hangs together. And that's kind of... It's more than discombobulating, which is a good word I like to use. It's demeaning. For me, it's slightly demeaning for her as well. She becomes a carer after half a century of marriage.
How's that, Sally?
It's hard work. It's frustrating. It's quite depressing sometimes. But you know, we try and find humour in it all. But it's not easy. And you know, you're not trained to do it. You just have to make it up as you go along.
And Sally, when did you first start to worry about Alistair?
It was probably about 2 years around now, and he was just doing things strangely at home, leaving lights on, which doesn't sound a big deal, but for someone who's obsessed with switching lights off, he couldn't tell the time on a clock, he couldn't reset the clock, he was getting confused with days, leaving doors open, gates open, that sort of thing. Little tiny issues, but, you know, it was a concern, yes.
And yet, to meet you this morning, to hear you this morning, you seem just as fluent and as in control as ever. It's this strange contrast, right?
It is a strange contrast, and I think, as Sal quite rightly said, I mean, she has this wonderful expression of, you know, just get on with it, and I think you have to do that. And part of coming out, which is to use another expression that she coined about my condition, that's part of why we wanted to come out, is to say to folk, is 1 in 2 people will either have dementia or be directly affected, as she is, by someone who's got dementia because they live together, they're married or whatever it might be. And is to give people the confidence. If you're worried about your own condition, you can't tell the time on an old-fashioned clock, you can't do your shoelaces up, go and have a conversation with your GP. We have found, OK, we're lucky maybe in Hampshire, but our GP's been brilliant. And Sal has had a diagnosis of breast cancer recently as well. And the NHS have looked after us brilliantly. We haven't had to wait for anything. And if you go and see the GP, there are things that you can do to stop this condition getting worse. Alzheimer's different. We're working hard as a charity, funding research to try and find a chemical cure for Alzheimer's. But with vascular dementia, you give up smoking, you give up drinking, you do a lot more exercise, and that will help you regain some control.
So how does your day look now, Alistair? You know, with these things that you can put in place to maybe slow down the progression, what do you do in terms of exercise and looking after yourself?
The animals are crucial as well. We live on a small farm and two of our children are very heavily into the horse world. One's a professional show jumper and the other runs a training yard and a livery stable. We have a couple, 3 horses live with us and Sal's 2 donkeys as well, who are very... And taking the dogs for a walk, that's... we were joking with Rory when we met him. Lily, in the background there, is a rescue dog from Greece, and Suki in the foreground is a rescue dog from Travellers, who just left her by the roadside, and the kids found her. So every morning I get up, I go and feed the chickens. That's our back door into the garden. I feed the duck. We have 1 duck left after a fox decided to pop in and say hello. Oh dear. That's the hen house there. And I then take the 2 dogs for a walk across the field. And I love it because I genuinely love the dogs. It gets fresh air into my brain. It gives me some exercise. Vascular dementia is enormously about blood pressure. So get blood pressure down and it really, really helps.
Sally, that's the day-to-day. It looks like you're doing incredibly well. And he's doing incredibly well. What about the future? What sort of thoughts do you have about how this will progress?
I don't think we really know. I think you just have to take each day as it comes, take advice. But obviously research is vital into Alzheimer's, and that's why we're supporting Alzheimer's Research UK, because that's obviously a long-term projected. But we never really... Somebody asked us recently in an interview, you know, how it has affected our plans for the future, and we really didn't have any. We just assumed we'd sort of, you know, he'd give up work and we'd stay at the farm and play with the grandchildren. And that's obviously still our intention, but you just have to take each day as it comes and see what happens.
And Sally, Alistair mentioned you've had your own health worries, haven't you, in recent years? How are you now?
Hopefully I'm sorted out. They got it very early, hopefully, and I've got a check-up at the end of this month. But... it's fine.
It's hard. It's a lot to juggle.
It is. It is. It was a bit of a shock, a bit of a blip, but, you know, you just have to get on with it, don't you?
Alistair, you spent a career interviewing other people about their lives, about issues and stories. Is it a bit weird to be the one answering the questions now about, you know, sort of talking about your own story? Is that a strange transition?
If I've annoyed the lovely, beautiful woman on my right, she'd say, oh, no, he loves talking about himself. What I genuinely love doing is, and I always have done, and your boss, who's a very close friend of mine, will confirm it through my charity work and what have you, is if I can do anything to help other people, whether it's kids coming up in our lovely profession, which we adore, and I had an exchange on social media with the brilliant Anna Foster, who I think is a total star, and she recorded a brilliant piece about how she covered that Turkish earthquake, and it's the best bit of training I've ever seen committed to film or to tape. So I don't mind answering questions if I think it's going to help something. I mean, I think if it's like you just said to Sal, you know, what about our plans? Well, we didn't plan to have 2 grandchildren, but God is the best pharmacist imaginable, and the 2 grandchildren, Tommy and Jim Jam, are, if either of us are feeling remotely down in the dumps, they're like rocket fuel. It's just fantastic. So we're blessed with 2 grandchildren. We're blessed with 4 utterly fantastic children and the most wonderful circle of friends, many of whom have popped down to see us to make sure everything's going OK. Can they help, particularly the girlfriends, can they help Sal with her condition? We really have been lucky in that respect. So keep in touch with your friends, be honest about your condition and listen to what those who know, like GPs, tell you to do and do it.
And you say be honest. You've talked about, you know, speaking openly about your condition for the first time. Was there ever a moment where you thought, I don't want anyone to know this, I just want to keep it quiet? Because I think that's possibly what happens to a lot of people.
Yeah. The honest answer to that is no. I started the whole process, as Sal said. She spotted strange things. The fantastic team of women I worked with at GB News also spotted it. And one of them, her dad had dementia, so she knew exactly what she was talking about. And so I took the initiative to go and see the GP and sat down and said, look, I think I might have early onset dementia. And he said, I don't know. I'm a GP. The only way we can find out is to get a scan. And that showed that I had had a series of small strokes, which is what vascular dementia comes across as. You know, you have to take a deep breath and do all of those things that will help it not get any worse. I'm not as convinced as some are about retraining the brain with things like crossword puzzles and word searches. I mean, I've done a bit of that, but the problem is, you know, you kind of realise halfway through, yeah, I've got it, I've sorted it, and you want to get on and do something else. But I watch the news still very, very closely on all channels, and it amused me to see the troubles that are going on in the Middle East and the evacuation from Lebanon, because Ben Brown and I did that jointly last time, about a decade ago. And Ben and I were there on the dockside when the Royal Navy frigate came in and took all the Brits out. And I've done 3 elections in America as well. So, you know, news, as we all know, is new. Otherwise, it wasn't news. But there's often an echo as well. Been there before.
You've just missed Ben Brown because he was in this very studio doing the 1 o'clock news yesterday.
Well, he's a star as well, and my best regards to him, and through you, if I may, to Anna, who I think is the star of the future.
Absolutely.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you
Thank you both so much. All the best wishes for
Thank you for having us,
and the whole
on
family.
behalf of everybody at Alzheimer's Research UK, thank you. It means the world to us. It really does.
Well, thank you for talking so openly. I'm sure there'll be lots of families watching who are very grateful for your openness, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.